This is the MGTOW Infinium here with another Infinium training session. This Infinium training session is entitled The Enforcer Simp Always Loses Big Time. My brothers, as MGTOW men, we all know in general that simping in any form is antecedent to our way of life, which when challenged by the feminist plantation state in terms of our stance against simping, it becomes another illegitimate reason why the MGTOW philosophy is deemed as terrorist in nature by said state. It is for the aforementioned reason why we as MGTOW men must not only maintain our resilience, but we must also reinforce our resilience against simping of any form. One of the ways that we can stand strong against simping of any form is to understand what does happen to simps long term. That being the negative impacts to a simp's life which are derived from the consequences of his simping. It is a given that simps will always end up with the short end of the life experience stick. But if we delve deeper into a particular type of simp known as an enforcer simp, that short end of the life experience stick can become a nightmare from the deepest pits of hell, solely because of the ramifications surrounding the actions or activity of an enforcer simp. Although all simps operate on a foundation of false nobility, it should be noted here that for enforcer simps, this false nobility is only heightened by their increased sense of false duty. This is because from the enforcer simp's perspective, he is fighting a battle that must be won at all costs. Therefore, he must win the battle, as this is the only way the enforcer simp can please the woman who he is simping for. The sad truth of what the enforcer simp faces, and for that matter any simp, is that simping has no outcome where a simp wins. Therefore, all outcomes for simps of any type is that of loss. Now, if we look specifically at a likely outcome that an enforcer simp generally faces, that outcome would be winding up either severely injured or dead. For example, an argument between an enforcer simp and another simp, which is instigated by the woman of the enforcer simp, could result in either severe injuries or his death. Here, it is the need of the enforcer simp coupled with his false nobility which causes him to take action in the defense of the woman involved. And it is because of the woman's triggering of his false sense of nobility that he must protect her at all costs. The enforcer simp engages in actions which lead to him either being severely injured or being killed. Aside from being severely injured or killed, the enforcer simp can face lifelong devastating effects of his actions, which those devastating effects can be various in nature, have various consequences, and can be worldwide in terms of their scale. Nevertheless, the aforementioned devastating effects are all generated by and centered around the embarrassment that the enforcer simp will go through. For example, the 2022 Oscar slap incident between Will Smith and Chris Rock serves as a perfect example of what will happen to an enforcer simp in terms of embarrassment. Here, because of Smith's false sense of nobility and the sense that he must defend his wife at all costs, he wound up doing great damage to what was previously a strong acting and musical career. And instead of the lasting legacy of his acting and musical career, Smith now faces the legacy of public embarrassment which lives on worldwide because of the internet, which just one of the devastating effects of that public embarrassment is the replacing of Smith's persona of strength and stability with that of weakness and instability. As well, it does not matter how powerful the enforcer simp is, because at the end of the day, it is always the woman who is vastly more powerful than what the enforcer simp can ever be, solely because it is the woman who is in control of the enforcer simp in every possible way. The aforementioned becomes possible because of the powers that the feminist plantation state affords all women, regardless if they are pro or anti-feminist. For example, former President Barack Obama, who is now, because of his past actions, is considered to be an enforcer simp, was forced to attend the inauguration of President Donald Trump without Michelle, his wife. This was because Michelle had refused to attend the inauguration because of her prior contention with Trump. As well, Michelle was the only wife of a former president who refused to attend Donald Trump's presidential inauguration. Although Michelle's actions are being attributed to her contention with Donald Trump and possible marital issues between her and Barack, Another consideration is the great failure Barack Obama now represents as an enforcer simp. Specifically, Barack Obama was tasked as an enforcer simp to berate and shame black men who would not vote for Kamala Harris. Because of the way Barack Obama publicly demeaned black men, his efforts as an enforcer simp failed and resulted in an intensification of the overall backlash against Kamala Harris. It should be noted here that although an enforcer simp's efforts will generally result in overall failure, if that failure results in or contributes to collateral damage which affects the feminist plantation state, feminists, and women overall, the enforcer simp will be severely punished for the effects of that failure. Here, in the case of former President Barack Obama, his punishment was in the form of his great public embarrassment, which was worldwide in scope and scale. But in the case of the enforcer simp, not only will women not have his back, they will also sit back and watch him burn up in the atmosphere of his public embarrassment. Or in other words, women will not try to intervene and stop the enforcer simp from destroying himself. Furthermore, as in the case of both Will Smith and former President Barack Obama, women will use the enforcer simp's failure to their advantage. In Michelle Obama's case, it was a virtual signaling to the world that specifically black men do not deserve the respect of black women regardless of how powerful black men are. In the case of Jada Pinkett Smith, it was a virtual signaling to the world that she had power and control over Will Smith in every possible way. Finally, there is the consideration of the reap what you sow component which the enforcer simp may face. Specifically, enforcer simps can wind up reaping what they have sown because of their actions. As such, any action which results in the persecution of men because of targeting by enforcer simps, those actions will undoubtedly be used on enforcer simps in time. In the case of former President Barack Obama, his actions in terms of publicly shaming black men are now being used upon him in the form of him now being shamed publicly. My brothers, again, consider your value as a MGTOW man and use that as a determining factor which aids your ability to stand strong against detrimental things like simping. Remember that your life as a free man should not involve anything which would impede or destroy your ability to be free. That being said, never ever simp. Just don't do it. This is the MGTOW Infinium, and this has been an Infinium training session. My MGTOW brothers, as always, stay safe, stay strong, stay on the MGTOW path, and remember, MGTOW is the liberation of men's minds. MGTOW cannot and will not be stopped.